So today's video is going to be a review for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, which is the second book in the Harry Potter series. Unfortunately, this has always been my least favorite book growing up in the series, and that really hasn't changed as I've gotten older and continued to reread. I don't think the book is bad by any means, but it definitely, in my opinion, is the weakest in the series, which means that this review that is meant to be the positive review where I gush and talk about all the great things about the series that I love is a little bit lacking. I still have plenty to talk about, but unfortunately, it's going to be pretty disproportionate to the video that's coming after this one. But that other video should be fun. So kicking it off, one thing that I always love in these books is the beginning. I think that J.K. Rowling, I love the time that she spends before we even get to Hogwarts, getting to know just day-to-day life with these kids. It's one thing that she does so well. And once again, like I mentioned in my review for book one, we really get a quick and almost surface level glimpse into a lot of the horrible things that Harry goes through with the Dursleys. And J.K. Rowling does such a great job of stating it in a simple way that wouldn't be extremely emotional for children to read, and yet put in a way that can really cut deep and make people latch onto this story as they've experienced some of these things, as they've potentially experienced some of these things as well. We see that when Petunia not only tells Harry that the whole family told Harry that he had to lock himself in his room and pretend like he doesn't exist while they have dinner guests because they don't want the dinner guests to know that they have to be in charge of him. But before he does all that, he has to go do a bunch of yard work and paint the fence and run himself ragged doing a bunch of house chores, then have a quick meal of, I think it was bread and cheese or something like that, and then be shunted off to his room so that the family could have their dinner with their guests. But before he's sent off to his room, I think Dudley tattled on Harry for saying that he was going to do magic or something, or bringing up his school. So Petunia took her cast iron pan and swung it at Harry's head, intending to hit him over the head with his pan. Then later, after the whole catastrophe with the pudding gets dropped on the guest's head, he's locked in his room for weeks, I believe, with only one meal a day of cold canned soup that he has to share with his owl. Talks about how incredibly hungry the poor kid is. This is horrible stuff. And then we also get a glimpse of what he's been through when we're at the Burrow, and Harry, more than anything else, more than this entire magical home, is amazed that he's in a household where everybody seems to like him. It's so gut-wrenching, especially when you're at an age where you can really process what's happening to this kid. But man, no wonder people really latch onto this story, especially when they've been through this stuff too. Then we get the whole scene with the rescue, with the flying car, with the twins and Ron, and then to the Burrow. I've always loved this part of the book. I love the twins, that they have the bobby pins and they can pick locks, and they say that a lot of people consider this to be useless muggle stuff, but we find it comes in handy. I just love how brilliant these twins are and how mischievous they are. The whole adventure of nearly getting caught, Vernon trying to keep him in the house because he doesn't want him to have any more of this magic stuff ingrained in him, and then them flying off and getting away to safety and to a loving family. I love the way Molly comes in furious at her kids for how dangerous and irresponsible they were, that she was going to go and help Harry if they hadn't heard from him in like another day or two. And she was so mad at her kids for doing something so dangerous. And then how kind she is to Harry in the very next breath, and then back to yelling at her kids, and then kind to Harry. I love Molly's dynamic. And just in general, the way the Burrow is built, and our first encounter with this home that runs on magic, and it's such a chaotic, beautiful house. I love any time we get to spend at the Burrow, and I love this one especially because we're discovering it with Harry, and it's such a cool, chaotic, magical, awesome place to be. Then we get to Hogwarts, and I don't have a ton to say about this because, like I said, this is my least favorite book in the series, so I just don't have a lot to say. But one thing that I've always loved about this book is Gilderoy Lockhart. Not only is the man so insane, I mean, with comments like Harry's had a taste of fame with the whole deal with he who must not be named and whatnot, but you know, he'll get there. He'll get to Lockhart's level eventually. The man is so far up his own butt that he cannot see straight, and I love it. He is the perfect representation of what he was supposed to be. Even when he's exposed and when he admits, yeah, okay, so I'm really good at memory charms and I hunt down these witches and wizards and I collect their memories, I get them to tell me their stories, and then I make them forget. Even in that, he's so proud because he's like, you don't get it. There's a lot of work that goes into this. I'm not just scamming people. I really had to work for my fame. I did a lot to get here. And then when Ron is reasonably upset at him about this stuff, he's just like, Ron, come on. Somebody had to tell the story and nobody would have bought books with that ugly mug's face on it. Like, he feels so justified and he's just like, suck it up, kid. This is the way of the world. I just really love Gilderoy's character because he is such a buffoon and all talk. There are so many scenarios when he's like, I can do this, like the dueling club, like when he tries to fix Harry's broken arm at the Quidditch match, like the Chamber of Secrets when he says that he knows where the entrance is and how he can save everybody that's down there, or save everybody from what's down there. Every scenario, he talks so big, and anytime he has to execute anything, he's an absolute failure, but still plays it off like he's not one. Then, of course, you have the end when he loses his memory, and he just turns into the funniest guy around. One thing that I love about rereading the series is all the different things that I pick up on that I haven't noticed in the past. Like, for instance, with Ginny, throughout the story, she is becoming really pale and looking really exhausted and quite weak and feeble, and just there's tons of excuses all throughout the book. She's a lover of cats. She's shaken up because she knew the person, or I don't remember all the excuses, but every time there's an attack, there's a reason Ginny is acting the way she's acting, and everybody just thinks that she's scared. Up until this reread, I always read that as Ginny genuinely being scared that she's gonna be caught. She knows that she's done something wrong, and she's acting this way and looking this way because she's losing sleep and panicking over the fact that she knows that somehow this is on her. This was my first reread when I realized, I finally put together that no, she's getting paler and weaker and all this stuff because she's dying. All the time that she's been pouring her soul into the journal, she's actually giving herself. And her let me just find the quote. So Ginny poured out her soul to me, and her soul happened to be exactly what I wanted. I grew stronger and stronger on a diet of her deepest fears, her deepest secrets. I grew powerful, far more powerful than little Miss Weasley, powerful enough to start feeding Miss Weasley a few of my secrets, to start pouring a little of my soul back into her. And now, as even when she's lying unconscious in the chamber, even now as she's lying there and she's slowly dying and becoming weaker and getting closer to death, he is getting stronger. He was blurry around the edges when Harry first saw him, and as they were standing there talking, he became more solid because Ginny was wasting away. I'm over-explaining this. It was a revelation to me. I had never picked up on the fact that her soul was essentially being sucked out of her over time instead of her just being nervous. Also, the Vanishing Cabinet shows up in this one twice. Well, I mean, both ends of the Vanishing Cabinet that shows up in book 6, I believe. Peeves the Poltergeist chucks the Vanishing Cabinet upon Nearly Headless Nick's suggestion to get Harry out of trouble and to get Filch to go after the cabinet, and he broke it. That's how that cabinet got broken. And then also when Harry has that catastrophe with the flu dust, which Mrs. Weasley. Mrs. Weasley tried to explain it to her, and Arthur told her to quit. Why'd you do that, Arthur? Anyway, when that all went down, he showed up at this shop where the Malfoys were, and then he went and hid in a cabinet. That's the other end of the Vanishing Cabinet. So both sides of the Vanishing Cabinet showed up, and we got to see the one destroyed that Malfoy spends so much time trying to fix. Plus, in this same shop, we got to see the necklace that Malfoy gives Katie, was it? In book 6, and that was rough. Plus, we also saw the Hand of Glory, I think it's called, that Harry also uses in book 6. And the last and most important thing that I picked up on this book is that Ron has been done dirty. I can't tell you how many times I have heard people say that Harry belonged in either Gryffindor or Slytherin, Hermione belonged in Ravenclaw, and Ron belonged in Hufflepuff. And the whole Ron belongs in Hufflepuff thing has never set right with me. I feel like people are just chucking him there because people are trying to say that more houses in the series, it'd be cool if they got more representation, which I agree with. I do think that it would be great if we saw more good guys in Slytherin instead of almost exclusively bad guys, and it would be cool if we got to see more good and bad in all the houses instead of, just Gryffindor's good, Slytherin's bad, Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff exist. That said, Ron has been done dirty. He deserves to be where he is. And this is as someone who is a Ravenclaw, married to a Hufflepuff. I love all the houses. Slytherin's a great house too. I don't think that Gryffindor is the superior house, though it is just as valid of a house as all of them. But Ron is so dang brave. Now, I noticed this in book 1, when he is the one that takes charge in the chess match, gets beat up in said match, which the movie totally does wrong. Ron's knight gets pulverized in the movie. In the book, Ron gets pulverized and knocked out. I guess he's knocked out in the movie too, but it's pretty anticlimactic because he was never even hit. Anyway, Ron sacrifices himself so that the others can move forward in book 1. In book 2, his greatest fear of all is spiders. And you have the scene where Harry suggests that they go ahead and go after the spiders that night, and Ron, knowing that it's the only way they can help Hermione, nods and resolves to go after the spiders. And then the moment when they're actually in the forest, and let's see, Harry says, "What do you reckon?" Wondering what they should do from here on, because they're not supposed to go past the path, they're not supposed to go off of the path in the Forbidden Forest. And Ron says, "Well, we've come this far," knowing that they're following spiders, which he's terrified of, knowing that they're going into the Forbidden Forest, where they're not supposed to be, where dangerous things are. The man is continually brave throughout this series. Very, very brave. And he deserves his place in Gryffindor. So does Neville. Okay, I thought I didn't have a lot to say, but I've already talked quite a bit, so I'll wrap this up pretty quickly. One other thing that I love about this book is the ending where we're in Dumbledore's office. The way Dumbledore is so quiet, understanding, ready to hear everything, and then when it comes time to confess what Ginny has done, Dumbledore doesn't even make them say anything. He cuts them off to say that it's not Ginny's fault and more powerful wizards than she have been manipulated by him. The fact that he doesn't even make them say it, the fact that he deduces it and then he takes the responsibility off of them before they can even start to put it on themselves is so good. In general, that entire scene at the end, when Lucius comes in and he's mad that Dumbledore is back, and then they explain, yeah, well, we caught him, and also it's your fault. That whole scene when Lucius says, well, you can't prove it, and Dumbledore says, true, but also you probably shouldn't be slipping these books into little girls' books, because it was slipped in a book, anymore. Because if any more of Tom Riddle's old school supplies find their way around, pretty sure Mr. Weasley's gonna get you this time. I appreciate that Dumbledore doesn't back down. Lucius says, you can't prove it, and Dumbledore says, true, but also, you need to stop. I love his subtle yet powerful way of challenging the people around him that suck. And last thing I'm going to mention, because I just think it's goofy, is the 200 points to Gryffindor House. We already discussed that the point system is all over the place, and that it's kind of goofy that at the end of book 1, Dumbledore decorated the house with Slytherin colors and then said, wait, before we celebrate, also, here's all the points that Gryffindor needs in order to just beat out Slytherin. And he sort of did it again in this book where he gave each of the boys 200 points, giving them a total of 400 extra points at the very last moment, therefore allowing Gryffindor House to win. Now this time we don't know how much they won by, but this time it was just a passing sentence. There wasn't even a big celebration or anything, and I think it's because Rowling has already determined, I don't really care about this whole house competition thing anymore because I don't really have anything to do with it. So she just threw that line away and then moved forward, and, It's funny. I obviously didn't talk at all or hardly at all about what happens in the chamber, and that is because it all belongs in my next video because it is a mess. But I love this series. Y'all know this. It's an incredible series. Even though this is my least favorite book in the series, I still had a blast reading it, and I know a lot of you guys like it, so this isn't meant to be a bashing of this book or anything, just a discussion of how I see it. But anyway, the next video is coming tomorrow where we're going to dig a little bit deeper and talk about some of the things that don't quite work. Until then, I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and I post my reviews on off days. I'll see you guys soon.